My mother persuaded my boyfriend to marry my sister. She told him, "She's stronger and better for you." My heart shattered when I found out, and I left LA to build a life of my own. Years later, we reunited at a grand charity gala, one that I hosted, and when they saw my husband, their faces turned pale. Because my husband was... I never thought I'd hear those words come out of my mother's mouth. "She's stronger and better for you." The sentence hung in the air like a blade about to fall into my heart as I stood frozen outside the kitchen door during my cousin's graduation party in Pasadena. My boyfriend of 3 years, Luke Henderson, had gone to get us drinks, but he was taking too long. I felt a tug of worry and went to look for him. I wish I hadn't. "Sweet Sophia is lovely," my mother said, "but Vanessa has always had a sharper mind and a clearer future." She spoke as if talking about some business investment, not her daughters. "You deserve someone who will elevate you, Luke, not someone who paints portraits in a rented studio in Echo Park." Peeking through the door, I saw Luke standing still. No protests, no denial, just silent acceptance. My mother reached out, gently patting his hand like he was already family. "Vanessa's admired you for years. She just never wanted to step on Sophia's toes. But now..." "I don't know, Mrs. Bennett." Adrian's voice wavered. "Nina and I have history. History doesn't pay the bills." My mother's voice was calm, almost kind. "Vanessa just became a junior partner at the firm. And Sophia? She still takes commissions off Craigslist." That last line hit harder than I expected, but it was Luke's silence, that heavy, shameful silence that broke me. I backed away without a sound, somehow keeping my composure throughout the party, while inside, a storm raged. I should have confronted them right then. I should have ended it that very night. But instead, I smiled like I hadn't heard a thing. That was my first mistake. After that night, everything started to shift, slowly, quietly. Luke began mentioning Vanessa more often. "Vanessa just won a tough case today," he'd say over dinner. "She's really on fire lately." Or he'd casually mention how she switched to Pilates and it's doing wonders for her posture. Every compliment felt like a paper cut. Small, but it stung. Then came the late nights, the canceled dates, the excuses. He started watching legal dramas, ones Vanessa had always loved. One evening, I saw a lunch receipt from a bistro in West Hollywood, a place Adrian and I had never gone to. 2 entrees, 2 drinks. When I asked, he smiled and said, "Oh, Vanessa and I just bumped into each other near her firm. Figured we'd grab a bite." The casual tone, the dismissiveness, it drove me mad. I started second-guessing myself. Was I being paranoid? At family dinners, I noticed how their eyes lingered just a moment too long, the way Vanessa laughed a little louder at Luke's jokes. My best friend Alita noticed it too. "He doesn't look at you the same anymore," Alita said after Luke once again left early for work. "We're just going through a rough patch," I insisted, even as the truth grew heavier in my chest. 3 months after the kitchen conversation, the truth was undeniable. That day, I showed up at Luke's apartment with surprise concert tickets for his favorite band. I still had the keys, since we'd been planning to move in together. The place was quiet. A trail of clothes led toward the bedroom. On the hallway floor was Vanessa's designer blouse. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. The sounds from inside confirmed what I had feared. I pushed the door open. Vanessa's long black hair sprawled across Adrian's chest as they lay tangled in bed, unaware I was there, until I dropped the concert tickets. They fluttered to the floor like confetti at a party I hadn't been invited to. "Sophia?" Adrian scrambled to cover himself. Vanessa just stared, not ashamed, but irritated by the interruption. This isn't. Don't. My voice sounded strange. Don't say this isn't what it looks like. I'm not stupid. Vanessa slowly sat up, making no effort to cover herself. You would have found out eventually. Maybe it's for the best. Their calm cruelty was more painful than any tearful apology. How long? I asked, even though the answer didn't matter. 2 months, officially, Luke confessed. But we'd been talking before. Since the moment my mom spoke to you, I finished. Their stunned expressions confirmed I knew more than they thought. I left without screaming or throwing things, though every part of me wanted to. The rage came later. That night, I felt only emptiness, like something inside me had been torn apart. The next morning, I confronted my mother. She wasn't remorseful, and that was the final blow. We stood in her pristine kitchen, the very place where she'd planted the seeds to destroy my relationship. Don't make a big deal out of this, Sophia. Breakups happen, she said while arranging flowers. Vanessa and Luke are better suited. You must see that. Why would you do this to me? I asked, voice shaking. I'm your daughter. She finally looked at me. Because Vanessa is more hardworking, more ambitious. She deserves someone on her level. You've always been soft. That's when I realized my mother never understood me, never valued me. In her eyes, I was always the lesser daughter, a failure for choosing passion over practicality. You're wrong, I whispered. You've always been wrong about me. That night, I packed only what fit in my car. Alita offered me her couch while I figured things out. But deep down, I knew I needed more than a new apartment. I needed a new city. Are you sure about this? Alita asked. Running away won't fix it. I'm not running, I said. I'm moving forward. The next morning, I left a note for my mother, sister, and Luke. No apologies, no anger, just 3 words, watch me shine. With my art portfolio, 2 months' worth of savings, and a will forged in heartbreak, I drove toward Seattle, a city where no one knew me. Seattle welcomed me with a torrential downpour. How fitting, I thought, as the windshield wipers struggled to keep up with the sheets of rain. The GPS led me to a small motel on the edge of the city, my temporary refuge while I searched for something more permanent. The room smelled faintly of cigarettes and cheap air freshener, a stark contrast to the dreams I was trying to rebuild. I sat on the edge of the bed, surrounded by hastily packed things, and allowed myself exactly 5 minutes to cry. Just 5 minutes of weakness before the next step. When the timer went off, I wiped my tears, closed my laptop, and set to work, finding housing and jobs with a mix of exhaustion and desperation. 3 days and 12 apartment viewings later, I signed a lease for a studio in Uptown, a character-filled neighborhood, according to the agent's hopeful description. Translation: old building, unreliable elevator, and neighbors ranging from students to night shift workers. The rent consumed nearly 2/3 of my remaining savings, marking the beginning of my Seattle experiment. You've got 30 days, I said to my reflection in the bathroom mirror, pinning job listings to the fridge with pizza slice magnets, my only decoration in this bare new home. Find work, or admit failure. 28 days later, after a string of rejections and unanswered applications, I walked into Horizon Equity Group for my final scheduled interview. The receptionist directed me to the waiting area, where another candidate was reviewing her notes. Her designer suit made my carefully ironed dress from a discount store feel underwhelming. Ms. Bennett? A sleek-haired woman with rimless glasses stepped out. I'm Carol from HR. I'm afraid there's been a change. My heart sank as she continued. The administrative position was filled internally, but Mr. Harrington would like to know if you'd be interested in another role, executive assistant to a junior partner. I followed her through a maze of cubicles and glass offices to a corner space where a man sat surrounded by papers and takeout containers. He looked up, tired eyes and stubbled chin, making his otherwise professional appearance oddly appealing. "Maxwell Harrington," he said, standing to shake my hand. "Apologies for the mess. The annual report is due soon, and my last assistant quit without notice." "Sophia Bennett," I replied, a little surprised by his firm handshake and direct gaze. "I'm not picky about job descriptions, as long as it pays." A smile flickered across his lips. "Honest, I like that." He gestured for me to sit. "Tell me, why would an art graduate from," he glanced at my resume, "Los Angeles wants to work at an investment firm in Seattle?" I could have given a diplomatic answer about changing careers and financial needs, but instead I heard myself say, "Because sometimes, to start over, you have to burn the old map and draw a new one." For a moment, I thought I'd ruined the interview with a line straight out of a drama series, but Maxwell nodded slowly. "I get that," he said, pushing aside a stack of files. "This job pays less than the admin role you applied for, but it has more growth potential. The hours are intense, the learning curve steep, and people say I'm a difficult boss." "I don't mind hard work or difficult people," I said, thinking of my mother's endless disappointment. "I'm a fast learner." He hired me on the spot, and I started the next morning. The first few weeks were a trial by fire. Maxwell worked 16-hour days preparing client portfolios and investment strategies, and he expected me to keep up. I fetched his coffee, which often went cold as he analyzed markets. I ordered lunch he usually forgot to eat, turned chaos into order, and gradually absorbed the language of investing like osmosis. "Why are you still here?" he asked one night at 11 p.m., when he found me reorganizing client files by risk level instead of alphabetically. "Because the work isn't done," I replied simply. At first, our relationship was strictly professional, but there were awkward moments, like when he accidentally texted me a rant about a bad date meant for his brother, or when I spilled coffee on critical documents and nearly cried from stress. "It's just paper," he said, helping me clean up. "The data backed up. Breathe, Sophia." Lunch breaks became unintentional bonding time. Maxwell insisted I step outside the office, taking me to food trucks and hidden little restaurants where we talked about everything but work. His love for vintage motorcycles, the art I'd abandoned. I kept my past vague, and he never pressed. I wasn't ready. "You're a mystery, Bennett," he said once over banh mi. "Most people love talking about themselves." "I just don't think I have anything worth sharing," I deflected. Over time, we worked more fluidly together, and our closeness deepened. Maxwell began seeking my input on client presentations, and I started anticipating his needs before he spoke. Late nights turned from tense silence into easy collaboration, even veering into unexpectedly personal conversations. My dad wanted me to take over his construction business, Maxwell confided one evening. "He thinks finance is just playing with other people's money. We haven't spoken in 2 years." "My mom always favored my sister," I replied, the first time I mentioned family. "Nothing I did was ever good enough." He didn't offer cliches or judgments, just quiet, understanding silence, which healed more than any words. 6 months into my rebirth in Seattle, Maxwell invited me to dinner at a real restaurant, not takeout at our desks. I thought we were celebrating a new client. But after dessert, he slid a folder across the table. "I've been developing this plan for 3 years," he explained as I skimmed through it. It was a proposal for a boutique investment firm focused on sustainable businesses and first-generation entrepreneurs, the kind overlooked by traditional firms. I looked up, puzzled. This is impressive, but why are you showing me this? Because I'm leaving Horizon Equity Group next month to launch this, he said, leaning in, eyes burning with conviction. And I want you to come with me. Not as an assistant, as operations manager. You understand how systems work, how people work, how to keep things running, something I've never been good at. This sounds crazy, I breathed, my heart pounding. I barely understand the investment world. You understand more than you think, he countered. And you have something rarer than technical skill, integrity and intuition. Everything else can be learned. It'll be risky, I said cautiously, though a part of me already wanted to say yes. Hugely risky, he agreed, with disarming honesty. We could fail miserably, but I'd rather fail building something meaningful than succeed helping the rich get richer. I searched his face for signs of recklessness or empty ambition. Instead, I found steadiness, a deep belief in his vision, and more surprisingly, in me. When do we start? I heard myself ask, and for the first time since leaving Los Angeles, I felt like I was moving forward, not just running from the past. We naturally transitioned from colleagues to business partners, but the shift from friends to something more caught us both by surprise. It all started with late nights reviewing business plans, which gradually turned into conversations about dreams and hopes. Then came dinners that extended far beyond work-related topics. 6 months later, Maxwell kissed me for the first time outside the office building, as snow gently fell around us. We didn't say anything the next day, both afraid of complicating our fragile business relationship. But when it happened again a week later, we couldn't continue pretending it was just a moment of impulse. This could ruin everything we've built, I warned him one evening. Or it could be the foundation for something better, he countered, always the optimist when it came to me, someone who was otherwise practical and cautious. Our relationship didn't follow the usual pattern. Business meetings became dates. Market research trips turned into weekend getaways. We kept our relationship secret from clients and investors, determined to be taken seriously in a field where women were often seen as decoration rather than partners. Less than a year later, Maxwell proposed to me in the most ordinary of moments. We were both in athletic wear, sitting on the living room floor, reviewing quarterly financial reports. "Marry me," he said suddenly, looking up from the spreadsheet. "Be my partner in everything." No ring, no prepared speech, just the quiet certainty that left me speechless. People will say it's too soon, I hesitated, even though my heart already knew the answer. Let them say it. I've never been more certain of anything than this. We married 3 months later at the courthouse, with only Alida, who flew in from Philadelphia, and Maxwell's brother, Michael, as witnesses. I wore a simple cream-colored dress. Max wore a charcoal suit. There were no formal vows, just clear and heartfelt promises. "I choose you as my partner in everything," Maxwell said, squeezing my hand. "I promise that our relationship will always come first before work, before success, before anything else." Those words healed a part of me that had been hurt by betrayal. This wasn't a man looking for someone better. He saw me for who I truly was and chose me willingly. Our wedding reception was a dinner at our favorite Vietnamese restaurant where it all began. The owner, Mrs. Helen, insisted on decorating our table with flowers and bringing out a bottle of champagne she had secretly saved for special occasions. "To relationships that lift us higher," Maxwell toasted. Reality quickly replaced romance as we faced the challenges of a startup. Our young company, Westlight Capital, operated from a studio in a crumbling building in Capitol Hill, where the lights flickered every time the toaster and microwave were used at the same time. Rent was cheap, but even that felt expensive when we were behind on invoices. Sometimes the power got shut off for a few hours. Once we pretended we weren't home when the landlord knocked. We hadn't paid rent in 2 months. The dining table became the meeting room. The living room turned into a makeshift office with filing cabinets disguised as nightstands. We scheduled meetings with clients at cafes or hotel lobbies, carefully crafting the illusion of a stable success we hadn't quite achieved yet. I took a part-time job at an art gallery to supplement our income, while Maxwell tirelessly searched for potential clients. Our savings dwindled month after month without the breakthrough we desperately needed. There were nights when I saw Maxwell still awake at 3 a.m., recalculating financial forecasts or tweaking investment proposals. "We should consider taking on more traditional clients," I suggested gently after 6 months of struggling to cover expenses. "Just until we're really stable. If we compromise now, we'll never get back to our original vision," he argued, his voice carrying a determination that was both admirable and intimidating. Our first argument as a married couple exploded. It was about finances. To save money, I took on freelance design projects at night, while Lana picked up shifts at a local bookstore. There were nights we only had instant noodles for dinner. We argued about priorities, money, about whether we were making the right choices. Maxwell wanted to invest the last of our emergency fund into a risky expansion move, while I pushed to hold on to what little stability we had left. The argument ended with slammed doors and hurt feelings, but it also led to a compromise, half for growth, half for safety. But even in our worst moments, there was never a question about giving up. That became our pattern. His ambition balanced by my practicality, creating a harmony that neither of us could achieve on our own. 8 months after we married, the opportunity we had been waiting for finally appeared. A mid-sized clean energy startup in Pasadena was searching for investors who understood more than just numbers. They needed partners who believed in their mission. Maxwell spent weeks refining a pitch that emphasized not only returns but environmental and social impact. I stayed up late designing presentation packets that were clean, modern, and reflected our values. They chose us, not just over newer firms, but even over legacy names in the industry. And they brought along 3 other like-minded startups. For the first time, we had momentum. "We need to celebrate," Max said. His eyes lit up with the kind of energy I hadn't seen in months. I hesitated. We still had bills to pay, but he surprised me by recreating our first dinner together, takeout from the little Vietnamese spot in Koreatown where we used to meet after long work days. "To our first big win," he toasted, raising a chipped mug of red wine, "and to the woman who made it possible." After that deal, Westlight Capital began to thrive. Our small loft overflowed with documents, whiteboards, and interns who squeezed between the kitchen counter and the futon. Client calls were taken in the hallway. Zoom meetings happened in the bathroom if needed. It became unsustainable the day a potential investor arrived early and caught me brushing my teeth in the background of Maxwell's pitch. That night, Max sat me down. "It's time we get a real office," he said, "and maybe a place where I don't find USB drives in the fruit bowl." We found a tiny but professional space in South Lake Union and moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment with one room finally free of spreadsheets and sticky notes. That separation of work and home gave us breathing room, and our relationship deepened. Over the next 3 years, Maxwell built a solid reputation in sustainable investing, known for integrity, creativity, and results. Our client base expanded not just in California, but into Arizona and Oregon, and we began hiring more full-time staff. I focused on building systems, refining workflows, training teams, and ensuring our culture didn't get lost as we grew. We weren't just husband and wife. We were co-founders with a rhythm. Maxwell was the dreamer, and I was the builder. His vision gave us direction, and my systems gave us structure. Our biggest milestone came unexpectedly. A major investment group based in San Francisco approached Max with an offer to acquire Westlight Capital. They wanted to absorb our firm into their sustainable division, but keep him on as CEO of the expanded unit. He would have full autonomy over ethical decision-making and lead a much larger team. "I never thought I'd run something this size," he told me that night, pacing the kitchen in disbelief. I helped him tie his tie the next morning for the signing. "They're not just buying you," I reminded him. "They're buying what we built." The transition wasn't smooth. Long nights, steep learning curves, new pressures, but I watched Max rise to the challenge with grace. Meanwhile, I took on the official title of Chief Operating Officer, overseeing everything from hiring to risk management. At the company's headquarters in West Seattle, people no longer saw me as the boss's wife. I had earned my own seat at the table. "We've made it," he whispered, as he raised a glass of champagne during the official announcement of his appointment as CEO. We had worked together, and as I watched him shake hands with the executives who now reported to him, I thought about how far we had come from that rainy day when I first arrived in Seattle, broken and alone. Life had taken everything from me, only to replace it with something I had never dared to imagine. 5 years after Max took the role of CEO, Westlight had grown into a regional leader in sustainable finance. My systems powered our expansion into 3 more states, and my voice became central in strategic meetings. At home, we finally found balance. Sunday mornings spent reading in the garden, monthly dinners with close friends, and the occasional weekend up the coast where Max restored an old motorbike in a rented garage. We hadn't started a family yet, both of us focused on nurturing our growing company. However, the topic had begun to appear in late-night conversations. I rarely thought about LA anymore. Alita visited occasionally, bringing updates on mutual friends, but never mentioning my family. I had made peace with this new chapter in my life, thinking it was completely closed. At least, I thought it was, until one particular Tuesday morning. "You might want to see this," Max said, sliding a financial magazine across the breakfast table. A small headline in the corner of the magazine read, "Henderson and Associates face bankruptcy after failed expansion." "It's your sister's law firm," I said. "The one she built with my ex-boyfriend after he left his previous position to join her office." "I didn't know you still followed the news from LA, I said, trying to stay calm while my heart raced. "I don't follow it, but Veritas Capital Partners was on our short list of acquisition targets, and now my ex-boyfriend worked there. Their legal department outsourced services to Henderson and Associates." Max was watching me closely. "I want you to hear this from me before the office starts buzzing about it," he said. The magazine article detailed Vanessa's failure to expand her company nationwide, leading to mounting debts and lost clients. Luke seemed to have joined Veritas's compliance team after their joint venture collapsed, accepting a significant pay cut. The irony wasn't lost on me. The relationship my mother had arranged was now struggling, while I sat in a beautiful kitchen next to my successful husband. "Does this change your acquisition plans?" I asked practically. "That depends on you," Max replied. "Veritas's sustainable energy portfolio aligns perfectly with our growth strategy, but I'll back off if it makes you uncomfortable. His willingness to sacrifice a smart business decision to protect my feelings illustrated why I loved him. "Don't be silly," I said, holding his hand tightly. "It's just business." 2 weeks later, the acquisition was finalized. Veritas would maintain its brand identity, but operate under our company's umbrella, with Luke still holding a role in the compliance team, theoretically now an employee of ours, though there would be some management layers separating us. "We should throw a gala," Max suggested one evening as we reviewed the quarterly results. "We'll celebrate the acquisition, introduce our expanded sustainable investment portfolio to our investors, and introduce the Veritas team to our company culture." This wasn't unusual. We hosted similar events annually, often at the Getty Center in Los Angeles, where the sustainability theme fit well with our company values. But what surprised me was Maxwell's next statement. "I think we should invite Luke Henderson and key people from Fremont, including the legal representatives, to our company's gala. We'll show them that our company's value isn't just limited to LA." My teacup froze in midair as I stared at him. "You want to invite my sister and my ex-boyfriend to our company's gala?" Maxwell set the paperwork down. "Is that a problem?" he asked. "I don't know Henderson in the legal documents. I never connected it to your sister." His genuine surprise made me realize I had never shared my entire family history with him, just vague references to my demanding mother and my beloved sister. Max knew I left LA after being betrayed, but he didn't know the details. I had compartmentalized so well that I forgot he couldn't see the connections that felt so obvious to me. That night, I finally told him everything: my mother's manipulation, Vanessa's betrayal, my sister's coldness. I expected empathy, maybe even some protective anger on my behalf, but what I didn't expect was Max's thoughtful silence, followed by an unexpected perspective. "Maybe it's time they see who you've become," he said finally. "Not for revenge, but for closure. You've built an extraordinary life, Sophia. A life that's true to yourself, not to what someone else wanted you to be." His words opened something within me, a desire not for revenge, but for recognition. Not to hurt them like they hurt me, but to stand tall before them as the woman I had become, no matter how much they had looked down on me. It was worth inviting them. I decided to invite everyone: Luke, Vanessa, even my mother. The weeks that followed were a blur of busy preparation for the gala, accompanied by a growing knot of anxiety in my stomach. I channeled all my nervous energy into ensuring every detail was perfect, from the sustainable seafood menu to the carbon-neutral transportation for guests. The event coordinator even remarked that I had never been this involved in the planning before. When reviewing the final guest list, seeing their names in black and white stirred up a wave of emotions I thought I had buried years ago. What would they think when they saw me now? Would my mother still see me as the inadequate daughter? Would Luke regret his past choice? These questions hovered like vultures, no matter how much I tried to push them away. "Having second thoughts?" Max asked when he saw me staring at the invitation template late one night. "Not second thoughts about inviting them," I answered. "Just wondering if I'm doing this for the right reason. After all these years, am I still seeking their approval?" Max sat down beside me, holding my hand. "Only you can answer that question. But from where I stand, you haven't needed anyone's approval since the day you arrived in LA, with nothing but grit and brilliance." He kissed my forehead. "Whatever the reason, I'll always be here for you." His steadfastness gave me strength. The next morning, I reviewed the final guest list without hesitation. RSVPs started coming in. Business partners, investors, Veritas staff. Then came the response from LA, Luke would attend as Veritas's compliance officer. Vanessa would come as his wife. And, most surprisingly, my mother also accepted, with a brief note saying she looked forward to reconnecting after all these years. The official invitations were sent out 3 weeks before the event. Elegant cards made from recycled paper and soy ink, reflecting the values our company upheld. For the family invitations, I included a handwritten note. I look forward to showing you the life I've built, Sophia Bennett. As the gala drew near, choosing my outfit became an unexpected source of anxiety. The perfect dress now had to be symbolic. It had to exude confidence without being too flashy. After countless shopping trips, I found it. A refined emerald dress, flattering my eyes and embodying elegance and authority. Ready to face the past? Maxwell asked the night before the event, catching me rehearsing imagined conversations in front of the mirror in our bedroom. Ready to show them my present? I corrected, suddenly seeing my purpose clearly. This was no longer about proving my worth to those who had once looked down on me. It was about honoring the journey that had led me to a life richer than anything I could have imagined when I fled Los Angeles. The venue in Beverly Hills had been beautifully transformed for the gala, with sustainable lighting casting a warm glow throughout the grand hall. Patrick and I arrived early to do a final check on the preparations. Organic flower arrangements, a menu featuring locally sourced ingredients, a jazz band softly playing in the corner. Everything was perfect. Everything reflected the values that had built our success. Feeling nervous? Maxwell asked as he adjusted his bow tie, both of us watching the staff finalize the last details. Strangely, no, I realized with surprise. The anxiety that had gnawed at me for weeks had disappeared, replaced by a feeling of certainty and peace. This is our moment. The world was mine. They were just visitors. As the guests began to arrive, Max and I stood near the entrance, greeting investors and colleagues with the calm that had been cultivated over time. I wore the emerald dress, with the simple diamond necklace Max had given me for our 5-year anniversary. My hair, once as long as Vanessa's, was now cut into an elegant bob, framing my face. I felt powerful, authentic, fully myself. I noticed them immediately. My mother entered first, in a navy blue dress with that old money style from Malibu, followed by Vanessa and Luke. They stopped right after the threshold, looking around the elegant setting, clearly searching for familiar faces in the sea of strangers. For a moment, I considered going over to greet them, but something stopped me. Let them come to me, I decided. Let them see me in my own world. Eventually, the circuit around the room brought them to where Maxwell and I were conversing with the mayor about green energy initiatives. My mother was the first to notice me. Her polite smile faltered for a moment before she regained her composure. Vanessa's eyes widened in genuine surprise. Mark just stood there, staring, his gaze shifting back and forth between Max and me, as if realizing something gradually. Sophia. My mother was the first to speak, embracing me with an affectionate, almost theatrical air. You look wonderful, I replied calmly, accepting her air kiss. I'm glad you could make it. I turned to introduce Max. This is my husband, Maxwell Harrington. Maxwell Harrington? Vanessa repeated, extending her hand for a shake, her eyes never leaving him, always analyzing, always calculating the benefits. Some things never change. Your reputation precedes you. I've been following your company's expansion with particular interest. With all due respect, Mrs. Henderson, Max replied smoothly, his hand resting gently on my back. Our success has always been a partnership from the start. It's Sophia's operational talent that turned my vision into reality. The surprise in their eyes was subtle, but unmistakable. This wasn't the story they were expecting. A broken girl rescued by a successful man. This was an equal partnership. Luke Henderson, my ex introduced stiffly, head of compliance at Veritas. We know your position, Max nodded professionally. Welcome to our company's system. Luke's expression shifted as the truth began to dawn. The parent company of Veritas is you? Indeed, I confirmed, savoring the moment without malice. The acquisition was finalized last month. Max will officially announce it in his speech tonight. Their confusion was evident. The man who had abandoned me for a stronger woman was now accountable to the company I had helped build. The sister who had taken everything from me now stood before me, no longer the beloved sibling, but just the wife of a middle manager. Excuse us, we need to continue greeting guests, Maxwell said politely. Please, make yourselves comfortable. As they walked away, I caught my mother's gaze, a look I couldn't fully decipher, between calculation and a hint of genuine bewilderment. The evening continued with the meticulous preparation of a perfect performance. Dinner was served, and awards were presented to key members of the team, including a few I had personally mentored. Throughout the evening, I felt their eyes on me, watching as executives consulted me, as Max mentioned my contributions in conversations, as I moved through the room from group to group. With the confidence of someone standing exactly where they belong, Max's welcome speech followed dinner. He spoke eloquently about sustainable investments, about building businesses that value more than just profits. Then came the announcement of the Veritas acquisition, with Luke uncomfortably thrust into the spotlight as Maxwell welcomed him and his colleagues into our company structure. The balance of power was so clear it almost seemed staged. Later, my mother approached me at the dessert table, holding a glass of champagne. I always knew you would make something of yourself, she said, as if rewriting history. You always had potential. Really? I asked gently. I remember very different assessments from before. She waved her hand as if dismissing it. A mother has to push her children to be their best. Vanessa needed confidence, and you needed motivation. What I needed was support, I gently corrected. And what I found was strength, in my own way. Well, she sipped her champagne. Maybe I should thank that Maxwell of yours for seeing what I missed. Maxwell saw me clearly, I nodded. But he didn't create my success, Mom. We built it together, because we value each other as equals. That's the difference. Her polite smile faltered. Vanessa and Luke are having a bit of trouble. She changed the subject, shifting tactics. Perhaps you could put in a good word for them? Family should help each other. And there it was, the real reason behind the friendly face. Not reconciliation, but opportunity. Some things really never change. Their performance will determine their future in the company, I replied calmly, just like mine once did. I saw Vanessa approaching, a determined look on her face, with Luke trailing behind. Your husband is impressive, my sister reluctantly admitted. The way he commanded the room, you've really done well for yourself. The compliment hung in the air, laden with implication, as if my success was merely a reflection of my husband's, rather than the result of equal collaboration. We've done well together, I corrected. That's how real partnerships work. Maybe that's something you should consider for your own arrangement. Vanessa's face stiffened at the subtle reminder. Luke avoided my gaze, unable to meet my eyes. There was tension between them, something brittle, and instead of the satisfaction I expected, I felt a flicker of unexpected sympathy. They had gotten everything they once desired, only to realize it wasn't the reward they imagined. If you'll excuse me, I should greet the other guests, I said politely. Have a lovely evening. Hours later, after the last guest had left and we returned home, exhausted but content, Max and I sat in the kitchen, eating leftover dessert straight from the box. "How do you feel?" he asked, watching my face under the soft kitchen light. "Relieved," I realized, like I just set down a burden I didn't know I was still carrying. He nodded thoughtfully. "They looked smaller than I imagined, based on how you'd described them." "They are smaller," I said quietly. "Or maybe I've grown. Not in status or success, but in understanding what truly matters." "And what is that?" Max asked, gently prompting me. "Building something real, something true to who I am," I said, reaching across the table to take his hand, "with someone who sees my worth without needing to diminish anyone else." "So, it wasn't about revenge?" His eyes smiled, already knowing the answer. "The strangest thing happened," I whispered. Standing there, seeing them, not happy, even after getting everything they were supposed to have, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt grateful. Grateful. "If they hadn't betrayed me," I said, tightening my grip on his hand, "I might never have left, never found Seattle, never met you, never discovered what I was capable of." Max smiled and pulled me into his warm embrace. "Maybe that's the most powerful kind of redemption, not making others pay, but realizing their actions led you to something far better." As we climbed the stairs to bed, weary but at peace, I realized that tonight had given me something I never knew I needed. Not the satisfaction of showing them what they'd lost, but the serenity of finally, truly letting them go.